Well, welcome. I'm very excited for our speaker today. She came, when was the last time? December that you were here? Early December?
I think so, yeah.
And she gave a presentation, as she will do today, and then hosted a Amanita experience afterwards. And that was my first time exploring any of that with intention, really going within to see what kind of questions I might ask and what answers might be revealed. And it was a very interesting experience. I left here last time and started writing, and I was still writing at like 1 o'clock in the morning. And that sort of became that sanctuary for inner peace that Dawn read a couple of months ago. Tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day. And today Gabi's going to be sharing with us some Celtic wisdom, including the traditions that go all the way back to Amanita Muscaria and the role that that's played in Irish and Celtic folklore and mysticism and mythology and her whole business. She's got a really cool apothecary up in Palmer. Gilbert and Marie and I did a road trip up there in December, and it's like the coolest little building right there on Main Street. People are just in there hanging out. They're making the tinctures. It's just a very, very really cool, special place. And the wisdom that she shares is just really kind of touches us very, very deeply, I think. So would you help me welcome our guest, Gabi, Chai.
Do you think David's gonna come with the? Oh, it's already recording here.
It is.
Oh
yes.
My goodness, you guys are high tech now. That's cool. I love it. Thank you so much, Bobby and Skokones, for the beautiful music. I felt it titillating my chakras in every way, like a lotus cube, all the light. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone who's here anew and everyone who came last time. This place is a treasure, and I wish you the best in finding your next home. I'm sure the perfect place is going to come up for you guys. You really deserve it. As Bobby mentioned, we have an apothecary up in Palmer called Chai Medicinals. It's right in between the bars, funny enough. It's in between two bars, and then we're the little self-healing resource center in the middle. We work with mushrooms and herbs primarily, and also frequency medicine with the Rife machine we have, which is an amazing technology. And I've been going deeper and deeper into that study, so that is going to kind of resonate in the talk today and also in the ceremony. We're going to talk a little bit about frequency and work with frequency energy, which I'm sure most of you here are at least somewhat familiar with if you are in this community. You guys have real open minds and have done your research and work and whatnot. So tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day. And it's funny, these books, which I will show you, these are wonderful ancient tree wisdom books, Celtic wisdom books. I was looking through my notes because I use these quite a bit to study about anything having to do with birch, which we're going to talk about today. And I found a little 4-leaf clover fell out, so I was excited about that. I don't think I've ever found a 4-leaf clover except for here in Alaska, and I found a bunch of them up here. So it's a good spot for 4-leaf clovers if you get out there. St. Patrick was a saint that came actually from England. The story is so much more complex than history likes to state, I guess, in the texts. And there's been a huge oversimplification of history just across the board. And the story of St. Patrick and the story of Christianity coming into Ireland it is also a part of that oversimplification story of history. It's so much more nuanced. And if you're on a spiritual path, you've probably or you may or may not have come to the conclusion that there really is non-dualism is a thing. You know, what's right and what's wrong, what's dark and what's light. Those elements are inside of all of us, and they're part of exist. They are what is. You know, everything that is and everything that is not is us. So Earth is a real harsh manifestation of that sometimes, and it can be confusing and sad, and also very joyful. But we'll get down to it with St. Patrick. Oh, and I should mention, so Chai Medicinals is our apothecary. We help people with herbs and mushrooms and frequency, but also the bigger picture is that we run a ministry. It's called the Universal Ministry of Transcendence. It's a 508c1a, a free church, and we help people reconnect with themselves through reconnecting with nature. Mushrooms and sacred mushrooms and sacred plants are a big part of that in ceremony. And today I'm offering a ceremony to you via the ministry that will involve Amanita Muscaria. Just in time for St. Patrick's, also known as All Snakes Day. Has anyone heard of All Snakes Day? Has anyone? Yes, of course, yes. So before Christianity came to Ireland, Ireland was a pagan, an earth worship epicenter. It's an island, so it's insulated, and it has a very specific, special culture that's very ancient, and the language of that culture is very beautiful and complex and very difficult to pronounce. So I'm not even going to try to pronounce today. I would like to learn more about it, but we'll just go with the English translations today. So the pagan earth-based, earth wisdom religions, essentially, of early Celtic history were very mystical. They were very connected with nature. There was a lot of talk of forest spirits of the plants, the rocks, and the trees. Everything was observed to carry an energy and a frequency, a divine frequency, and they were in constant connection with the messages coming from nature, and not only nature, but the fairy spirits and the lore of entities being in nature that were both mischievous and helpful and everything in between. I think a lot of us are innately connected to these sorts of things, maybe more so when we're children, and then we're told that it's all fake and fantasy. But I remember my own growing up in rural Cape Cod, Massachusetts. I was always playing with the fairies outside, building little houses for them and spending time in nature. So maybe you have a time in your life when you felt connected like that. I know some schools still promote that play and that connection, but a lot of it is lost by the time we get to adulthood in this modern world because it's looked at as frivolous and fantasy. But the Celts were very much entwined with it. You know what's interesting is that in Ireland there is a much higher concentration of Rh negative blood than in other parts of Europe, and even more so other parts of the world. Do you know about Rh negative, Rh positive blood? So when you find out your blood type, you'll be there's a variety of O, A, B, or AB, and then you're either positive or negative. Most people are positive. Some people are negative. You're negative? Really? Wow. We have some Rh negatives here. Amazing. Yeah. So the Rh negatives are, to me, I think many of us are star seeds, if not all of us. Take what you want today and leave the rest. I'm just going to be myself, if that's okay with everyone. Yeah, so the Rh negative, there is a very unique, a lot of times the Rh negative has blue eyes and red hair, like the traditional ginger look of Ireland. And what's interesting also is that the Basque country in Spain, which is in northern Spain, another very insulated culture, has deep ties with the Celtic culture. So, like, what is going on here? It's a real deep rabbit hole to explore. I find it to be fascinating. If you want to look into it more yourself, go right ahead. So back to the Celts, the earth-based religions of Ireland were centered around nature worship as well as consuming like sacred elixirs. And through my studies, I have found, through much reading, much inner work, and all the things that have led me here to this point today, that pretty much every ancient religion, and once again, if you don't want to take this as true or not, it's up to you, but I believe that everyone was taking mushrooms of one kind or another. Amanita muscaria primarily grows in the northern hemisphere. It actually doesn't grow natively in the southern hemisphere, although it is there now. People brought it to Australia and also other parts of South America. Now that could be also wrong because there's a lot we don't know, but it's more of a northern mushroom, and it definitely grows in Ireland. It grows here as well. Does everyone know the Amanita mushroom? Does anybody not know the Amanita mushroom? Okay, so the Amanita mushroom is the red mushroom with the white spots on it. You're familiar with it now? Yes, so we see it here in the fall, like the early fall, from July into about the end of August. We'll see it sometimes in the beginning of September, depending on the season, depending on the year. Some years we have huge flushes. You may have remembered, like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, there was a lot of Amanita, and then the next year it seemed like there was less, and so it fluctuates year to year. It's probably the top service that we provide at the apothecary. It is not federally scheduled. It's not an illegal mushroom, although in my opinion, none of them are. It's our own human right to consume these mushrooms as sacred sacrament for spiritual purposes and for really any purposes. However, they are scheduled. The psilocybin mushroom species are scheduled in this country. And that's kind of kooky, but we consume them as sacrament. It's First Amendment constitutional law that if it's part of your religion to consume the sacred mushroom, as our ancestors did, for sure, you're well within your legal right to do so. And we could go on and on about that, but we'll stick to St. Patrick's Day and All Snakes Day. So All Snakes Day is St. Patrick's Day. Same. It's this time of year is in pagan religion is called Ostara. In Christianity, it's called, we're getting close to Easter. It's the vernal equinox, the equal amounts of dark and light. So we're experiencing a harmonization of the void and the light. This time of year, we've passed Imbolc, the stirrings of light, and we're not quite at Beltane, which is like in May. That's like full bore spring, which, by the way, traditionally the Celts would use the birch tree as their maypole. So birch. Okay, let's go back to All Snakes Day. I'm sorry, I tend to jump all over the place, so hopefully you can follow me. All Snakes Day, well, there are no snakes in Ireland. There never have been. It's an island, and there are no snakes there. But the day that, or the times that Christianity was, brought from the Roman Christian other parts of England, Wales, what today is England, Wales, other parts of Europe, as it made its move onto the island of Ireland. They drove the snakes out, and you can look at the snake as the kundalini cosmic energy that is inside all of us, the sacred snake. So they were pretty much trying to eradicate the earth-based religions. And the earth-based religions, it sounds all hunky-dory, but there was a lot going on there too that was violent. There was a lot of inter-tribal slavery going on. It was not all peaceful, and neither was the introduction of Christianity. I mean, all of us contain the dark and the light, so none of it was like really smooth sailing. And like I said before, there's been a lot of oversimplification of history, and there's a lot of nuances, and there's people that were amazing on both sides and people that were horrible on both sides and everything in between. And even the horrible people probably had amazing qualities that we would look up to, and vice versa. But it was a big time of revolution, and I'll tell you a little bit about St. Patrick himself. So he was from England, and he was brought to Ireland as a slave. He tended sheep in Ireland for quite a few years, and at some point he went back to England and learned about, he was indoctrinated into Christianity, and then he felt it to be his mission to bring that back to Ireland. So there's a lot of like lore about him with elementals, which like tells me that there was, this intermixing of, religious culture going on. There's a story of him throwing all of the pagan religions into the ocean to like be purified. Well, that sounds pretty pagan to me. And also he went to a hill. They used to have these like druidic fires to represent, the aliveness of their spirituality. And he came in and he made a fire on the hill, and that was in representation of Christ. And so, it's pretty complicated, and I'm sure we're not getting all the info either. But this went on for like really even up until now, thousands of years. And one thing that I want to say is that one shift that is real obvious to me is that we came from consuming sacrament of mushrooms, which are very enlightening. Has anyone here, well, I know many of you have, but has anyone not consumed Amanita or psilocybin mushrooms? Is anyone like a complete beginner? Okay, so just to open the door for you, the psilocybin and the Amanita, they're psychoactive, sacred substances that are very, very ancient, very, very old, and they work on our nervous system and on our spirit in ways that are some things we can explain with modern science, and some I really don't think we can. But they, all of these old cultures would say they open the door, they lift the veil of enlightenment. They can give you a glimpse into what is unseen. And if you've studied spirituality, you may have found along your path that not everything is seen. As a matter of fact, most of what is real is not seen. That's what I've read. That's how I feel at this point. And you are all, we live in a country of religious freedom, so you can believe whatever you want. You can know whatever you want, whatever you're ready for, or whatever your soul calls to. There's no right or wrong with it. But the mushrooms do lift a veil in a way. And Amanita and psilocybin are very different fungal spirits. However, they work well together. And our focus today is on Amanita. Psilocybin grows mostly at warmer temperatures, although there are certain species. I'll say that, and then paradoxically, I'll also say that Alaska has more species of psilocybin mushrooms growing in the wild than pretty much anywhere else in the United States. So we just have very short seasons. So there's a lot in Fairbanks. There's a lot in Kenai, southeast Alaska. They're here too. Some have been brought in from other places. Some are native, and we obviously have a ton of Amanita here. Also, there's a book in the Anchorage Library called "Hallucinogenic Mushrooms of Alaska," and I think it's lacking, but there you go. It's there. It's not on the shelf. You got to ask for it. Yeah. But like I said, it's kind of I think someone needs to update that work, more pictures and more open-minded information. A lot of people will talk about the Amanita as being poisonous. Well, if you go in the forest and you eat a whole Amanita, you can get pretty sick. There are no recorded deaths of adult humans from Amanita muscaria. However, other species in the Amanita family or the Amanita genus are definitely deadly toxic. So you want to be very, very careful when you're harvesting. You want to be 110% sure about what you're doing when you pick mushrooms from the wild and consume them. So let's see, back to what I was talking about. So our ancestors in ceremony, alone, and in spiritual and ways were consuming sacred mushrooms, and a lot of times they would use honey to preserve the mushrooms. And so things were starting to be concocted like mead, and so the alcohol content over time went up and the mushroom content went down. And you can see this with the Christian church as well, that there was a lot of like covering of the real deep dives. Everything kind of went not just to alcohol, but from alcohol even to like sacraments that were just simply symbolic, like a wafer, the Eucharist, which is not psychoactive unless you're like you have it. We all have it inside of us, but the wafer of bread does not open the chakras in the third eye and heal the nervous system and bring the wisdom in like a psilocybin mushroom does. It's just different. Or maybe not, but for me it's different. You take enough mushrooms, you start to wonder.
There's always ergot.
There's always ergot, yes. Yeah, you don't want to eat that unprocessed though.
That's true.
Yeah, the Salem witch trials, there was a lot of gangrene going on from consumption of moldy bread, ergot. And I remember in Dutch Harbor there was a lot of it grows on I guess it's rye, and you'll see like this black little like fungus growing on the grass, and that's ergot, and that's what they make LSD out of. But if you just consume ergot, you can get gangrene. It's like it needs to be like processed for it to be non-harmful. And LSD, well, that's another story. We were talking about mushrooms today, and we're talking about the Celts. So let me see here. I wanted to mention. So the birch, Amanita muscaria is a wonderful symbol of the cycle of death and rebirth. It is a decomposer, and it also helps the forest regenerate plants and trees. It's mycorrhizal. It cannot be grown in a lab, as far as we know, because it has to live in symbiosis with like the tree root systems and the decomposing matter and all the little microbes that are like natively in the forest. So you could take like a slurry of Amanita and throw it in a place where you think it will grow, and you could like grow more Amanita in your yard, but it's probably not going to ever be grown in a lab. So it's really, really special that we have it here. And if you do ever forage it, it's really important to like have a plan for it and not just let it like rot. If you have picked some mushrooms and they're going to rot, just throw them back in the forest. Like it's better to let it rot in the forest, which is what it does naturally, than to let it rot in your refrigerator, and then it's just a big mess. And to respect the mushroom in that way. But Amanita is not super picky about where it grows. It grows a lot up here because we have birch and we have spruce. So when you see birch and spruce together, you're probably going to find Amanita there in the fall. And the birch tree has so much wisdom of its own. It's a very pioneering tree. It can grow out of almost nothing, like really low nutrient, rocky soil. It was the first tree that grew here out of the glaciers, as far as I know. It kind of primes and preps the area for other species of trees to come in, like the poplar and the spruce. The birch tree is like us Alaskans. It has the pioneering spirit. It has that fearless spirit of forging forward in the face of adversity and being able to make do with limited resources and come to a beautiful fruition without much, really, just with what we have right around us. And I love that about the birch. They call it the lady of the forest. If you've ever noticed, it has like eyes on it. It's always watching, and it's a very elegant and beautiful, refined tree. It's very medicinal. People who live around birch tend to live longer when their homes are made out of birch. They experience less chronic pain. That was from like a Siberian study. So it's a good wood to like have in your home and to make homes out of. I am currently growing some mushrooms on birch, and it's working well. I've also grown mushrooms on moose poop, so if we can't get Amazon up here anymore, like I got a plan. That was cool, but yeah, I don't grow much with poop, but I had to try the moose poop. I mean, it was the natural thing to do. So back to the birch. There's an old story. It's called the wife of Usher's Well. Has anyone heard of it? It's a Scottish story. So this woman, her husband died. It's old, and I'm sure it's a song or something. But her husband died, and I think like some of her sons died too. There was lots of like bad stuff that happened back in the day, like plagues and famine, and people didn't live as long as we do now. There's lots of tragedy going on, which it's kind of amazing that we're here. Like, it's a freaking miracle that each one of us is sitting here. So when you feel sad and depressed, you can remember how many of your ancestors had to survive into a certain point just for us to get here and sit in this room right now. So the wives of Usher Well, she had a lot of death and tragedy in her life, and the spirits of her family were around her in the parallel universe, in the spirit world, and the people that were living around her were pushing them away and saying, they're not here, this doesn't exist. And so the spirits tied birch bounds to their necks so that they could resist the winds of the earthly nature of society, so that they could stay and be here with the family. So I think actually, yeah, there's a song about that for sure. The Eurasian birch, they say, was like the original tree of life. Now, this is just things I've read, and like, who really knows, right? We can ask our guides, and we can ask, and maybe you'll come up with something else, but it's definitely been said that the Eurasian birch was the tree of life. And if you think about the nature of the birch, it does make sense, because it can grow from very little, and it perseveres. It has a pretty short life cycle. Birch has a lot of things in it that are very healing. Birch sap. Has anyone drank birch sap? So I brought some today for ceremony along with the Amanita tea. So we're going to prime our systems with birch sap first. And birch sap breaks up, it's good for pain. It breaks up stagnation. The energy of the birch, just in general, it's a purifier. It cleanses, it breaks up the old. Because as we seek higher states of consciousness, as we seek healing, in our body, mind, and spirit, it's not just about what we're taking in, it's about what we're letting go of. And so birch can really help support that process of like breaking up old cookadoodies and getting them out so that you have space for the new energy to come in. I'm in a phase where I'm like, there's a lot going on. Like, I don't want to work harder. I want to increase my frequency. I want to raise my vibration so that I can see with more clarity how to operate without stressing myself out. So the birch is really, really powerful ally and teacher for that, and medicine for that. So also birch sap, it helps to cleanse like the bladder and the kidneys. It helps break up calcifications. It purifies the blood. Birch is obviously known for pain. It's helping with pain. So birch is an amazing tree, and I believe that the Amanita and the birch are what brought my family and I to live in this area. It was a big part of it, because a lot of polypores grow on the birch, also like chaga, the lion's mane species that we have up here, different kinds of tinder conch and reishi mushrooms even. We have so much medicine in this forest. It is incredible. Turkey tail, there's so much medicine here for healing inflammation, cancer, all of these things, helping us support our immune systems, helping us raise our vibration, so that all the hitchhikers and stuff, yucky stuff that's all around us, which it is, there's stuff everywhere, but we're impervious to it when our frequency is high and our immune system is toned and we're living in harmony and in love and in light, and realizing that we're not alone, that we're supported, and that we can ask for help at any time, and that we have the right to be discerning about the help that we get, and that we should be discerning about the help that we get. But I have a lot of faith in the birch and in the Amanita and in the forest here. Let me see if I forgot anything. You know, there's probably people in this room that could talk more in depth about the history of the Celts and the Druids and the Ogams. I will say that birch is the first letter of the Ogam alphabet in the Celtic alphabet. It's like a Druidic alphabet with like sacred symbols. So Beith, I think that's how you say it. Beith is birch. It's the first one. It's the pioneer. It's the beginning. The tree of life. It's the very beginning. So yeah, I think, does anybody have any questions or have anything they want to share or add?
Well, thank you for coming here. The last time you were here, the first time we met, I didn't take a class. Ended up going home, but the power of the Raizial land that we live on. I consider myself a big time earther, and through that practice, after all these years, the Amanita actually, after your talk, and I didn't take any of that particular one. I took one of its cousins, but a small microdose. But the Amanita came to me while you were having your last get together. While I went home and I cooked some lunch, and I had the experience. I had the experience. I mean, in your face experience of the Amanita coming to me in gratitude. I mean, and it brought with me that its origins. And it brought a dinosaur, and it actually, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I don't believe hardly anything, but I mean, I could not believe that the Amanita was paying homage to this dinosaur food that it said that it had originated from. And I thought, how could this be? How could the frequency of what you're talking about be that real? And it's all in having faith in the earth, having faith in the mycorrhizal of the consciousness of the birch tree, of the mushroom. I was totally flabbergasted.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that, and it's not uncommon to work with Amanita long before one ever consumes it. It's ever present in folklore, you know, in children's books, and it's just really just about anywhere. When you think mushroom, that's like the pit. When you look at the emojis on your phone, that's the mushroom.
It's picturesque.
And there's been so much gaslighting around Amanita as it, you know, as a very dangerous mushroom. Well, I guess they think that reconnecting with our own essence is dangerous. I guess it's dangerous for people who want to control other people. I have a lot of books at the shop about the religious cultural history of Amanita muscaria, and then I have books about like the practical use of Amanita muscaria. So there's so many directions to come in and you know, research Amanita. My own personal story with Amanita, I'll share with you just briefly. I had a long history of choosing toxic relationships because I didn't value myself like deeply. And this lasted until I was about 36 years old. And I was, after working in Dutch Harbor, I was back on the East Coast, and I met somebody who kind of helped me learn how to grow mushrooms, but it was not the right person. This person didn't fully see me. It was a step in the way in my path of learning, but once again, I was not really seen of my, you know, true innate value. And I remember we were out in the forest, and he and his friend were picking all these Amanitas, and I got enraged. I was like, you don't know this mushroom. You're picking all these mushrooms. You're not leaving anything for anyone else to see or observe, and you don't even know what you're doing. You don't even know what these are. And it resulted in a big, like, explosive fight. And that day I took like one backpack and I left. I knew there was something else for me out there. I left everything. I left my car, everything. And I was 36. I had to start over completely. I had no money. My beautiful, wonderful second cousin invited me to stay with him in California. And about a month after that, I met Dennis, my husband. So, yeah. And he's a really good man. He really sees me. He saw me right away. It was completely different than anything else. And Dennis and I, what the work we do now is something that we do together. You know, usually you'll see me with the ceremonies, but Dennis is always behind the scenes, loading my car, making sure in ceremony when we have overnight ceremonies like we're about to have on the equinox, he's always there tending the fire. When people come to the house for, you know, personal high dose ceremony, Dennis is always there holding it down and has a very grounding energy, and he just is a perfect masculine counterpart to this ministry. And so when we were living together in California, I knew I wanted to move back to Alaska, but not to Dutch. I wanted to come to a place where there were more people around. And it was Imbolc. Do you know Imbolc? That's in the beginning of February. So that's the first stirrings of awakening of spring. And Amanita is a big part of that, like, pagan Celtic tradition, or, you know, it's kind of like a Norse, like there's a region of the world where there's a lot of Amanita and there's a lot of this, like, nature-based worship that's really old. And that's the nature-based worship with mushrooms, that's everywhere. But specifically, the goddess Brigid, working with fire and water, fertility, the stirrings of awakening of spring, awakening the spirit to, you know, coming into the light of what I call ordination, like what we came here to do. And we did have a ceremony for that up in Palmer this year. But I made the Brigid crosses in California, and I had just started collecting Amanita and drying it. I hadn't taken it yet, but I was planning on it. And about 3 days after that ceremony, after I did that on my own, we got evicted from our home, and we decided to move to Alaska. Mm-hmm. And this place is full of birch and Amanita. So it may sound crazy to some people, but maybe you have your own story of, you know, working with parts and pieces of nature. And I think for me, it's been a journey of remembering to be less judgmental about what comes through. You know, sometimes we receive these messages and we receive them in judgment and we dismiss them because that's weird, that's crazy. You know, we've been told and taught that, you know, if you can't see it, then it's not real. You know, I don't know about that. So, like, remaining an open channel and being discerning to where you're getting the information from, you know, always follow the path back to the origin. Like, is it in kindness and compassion and a high frequency, a high vibration, or is this like a low vibration of fear? Like, make an assessment in your heart. We all have that capability inside of us. Yes.
In your research and your practice, especially within biofeedback, have you ever experienced or practiced how they take a couple of rods or a couple of clips, actually put it into a mushroom and or a birch tree and listen to the frequency?
Yeah,
where you can actually, the plant will talk to you in a wavelength that you can hear.
Yeah, so I've seen it online. I've never, like, done it. I'm not, like, super techie with that stuff, although I love it. People clip their sound instruments onto, like, parts of nature, and you can hear, like, music coming from nature. But, you know, you can experience this just on your own by, like, connecting with a birch tree. Like, you can go out to a birch tree and leave an offering. Maybe you just leave a song or a prayer or your love, or, you know, you can bring some sacred tobacco if you want. You can bring some other plant. You can, you know, whatever you think is appropriate, and make homage and hug the tree. You know, like in the winter, it's a challenge sometimes because a lot of us like to put our feet on the ground, but you can just hug a tree because the tree is rooted in the ground, like a birch tree, and connect in that way and heal yourself with the tree.
It's an organic biofeedback experience
Mhm.
that is easily sensitized to as a human being.
Oh, for sure. We're built for it.
Exactly.
Exactly. We all have aura and frequency, and so do the trees. And stepping into that healing energy is really, really powerful, especially when your mind and your heart are open to it. You know, what you can do is kind of notice where you're at beforehand, just base level. Just go do your thing, and then see how you feel afterwards. You know, and never go it alone. You can ask for help. You can ask for help from the tree, from anything, but be selective. You know, be selective, because just like here, you wouldn't, you know, eat something off the floor. Like, you know, make sure it's good stuff. You want to put good stuff in. Yeah.
I kind of wanted to touch back on, the misconception of how dangerous Amanita is. I want to say it was about 6 months ago. There was like some news headlines in the lower 48 of these synthetic chocolate bars and gummies. I think it was the Diamond Head brand that sent a bunch of people to the hospital, and there were people that did die. But it wasn't from the Amanita, but because those products were being marketed as the Amanita Muscaria being the active ingredient, I think people got a huge misconception about the reality of the actual mushroom.
Yeah, it's really sad. So I call them gas station mushroom gummies. And they sell them a lot up in Palmer. I don't know about down here, but you can get these bags of mushroom gummies that they call them mushroom gummies. So maybe it has a trace amount of Amanita or lion's mane or something in it. Chaga, maybe there's a little bit. But I called some of the companies, and those are research chemicals. Yeah. So there's like different like types, and they won't tell you.
And
what
they don't disclose like the actual ingredients anywhere, like
Yeah.
on the packaging or on the website.
Yeah, and if you call them, even the company, nice people, you know, they know not what they do. Literally, they don't know what's in it.
Right.
They literally don't even know what's in it. The highest person in marketing and human resources does not know what is in those gummies.
Yeah.
My brother is a real psychonaut, and I asked him about it, and he had some theories about what was in there. And he's taken a lot of research chemicals. He's a real experimental, and I've tried in my younger times, like some of the things he talked about, and then listening to what other people said there. I wouldn't take them personally. I'm really selective. I make pretty much all the medicine I take now is what I make. I don't work with really anything else unless I really don't. Like from soup to nuts, anything I need, I make it now. Because I want it to come from the plant or the mushroom itself, like full spectrum. I want the whole thing, and I don't want any additives. I don't want any magnesium stearate. I don't want anything that doesn't need to be in my medicine to be in it, and I want everything that I do want to be in it. So, that's kind of what led me down this path. Was just my own path of healing and just discernment, over and over discernment. It's like I just cleaned out my supplement thing again. I had another bag this big, and it's just everything that I didn't make is in there. I just don't need it anymore. So, yeah.
So there was a fallacy back in the 80s. I've lived off the road system much of my 45 years here. That the white spots on the Amanita muscaria was strychnine. Is there any truth to that? So I had friends that would scrape that off, saying this is the toxic part.
Well, the white spots are what I know to be called the universal veil. So when it comes out of the ground, it's all white. It's like a bulb like this, and it's completely white. And as it grows, those spots kind of spread out, and they kind of start to hang down on the bottom. And then the veil opens, and then the spores are released. Most of the psychoactive and poisonous indoles are in the red skin. You know, the red part, it's like sticky. And so from what I understand, most of the stuff you want and don't want is in that. Like I believe in Japanese culture, they're consumed often, the Amanita muscaria, by parboiling. They'll boil them until all of the red is leached out. And then it's just like a very like plain food. It's just like a yummy plain food mushroom. I have heard some people say that the stems of the Amanita are good medicine for like that they have a higher concentration of ibotenic acid. I don't really think so because the experts don't say that, and I haven't had that experience. And placebo is a hell of a drug. When you think something, I mean, this is people heal themselves just through thought. So it's not that it's not real. If they believe that to be poison, they're already putting that frequency in it. But no, I don't think that the white specks. I think the most concerning part really is the part that has the medicine in it, which is the red part, and it's also the good stuff. So with Amanita, you don't want to eat very much of it fresh. When I'm harvesting in the forest, I will, when the mushroom goes convex, like up like this, I will drink little sips of the water because the water pulls the indoles and alkaloids off of that red stuff, and it's full of ibotenic acid. And ibotenic acid is super healing, but only in low doses. When you take too much ibotenic acid, it's not good for you. It's a neurotoxin. But like, you know, I don't take Tylenol, but if I did, I wouldn't take a bottle of Tylenol. I would take one Tylenol. That's it. You know, you don't want to overdo it, or you can die. I think Tylenol is more toxic than ibotenic acid, but you don't want to take ibotenic acid in high doses. So every year we make an ibotenic acid tincture from the fresh mushrooms. It's triple infused in Stoli vodka. It's like an old Russian recipe, and it's really good for focus and ADHD, and it's really good for pain. It's more wakeful. Most of the products we make are from the dried mushroom caps, and those are higher in muscimol. Muscimol is a sleepy, dreamy indole. So the tea that I made today is made with the dried mushroom caps, and then it's put into a hot tea and it's cooked. So there's another process on top of it, another decarboxylation. So there's been another process of conversion from ibotenic acid to muscimol. So what people are going to drink today is heavier in muscimol than ibotenic acid, and therefore higher doses are safer. I've taken personally up to about 18 grams at a time of Amanita muscaria, which I would never, I'd never say never, but honestly, I don't think I would ever come close to that much with psilocybin in one session. Like I would lose my I think like I'm sensitive, but it's a big difference of dosing between Amanita and psilocybin. It's not comparable, and the experience of taking even a micro or a macro dose of either one, it's not comparable. They're different. I do take Amanita and psilocybin together. I think they work really well together. But in early explorations, you may want to start off with one or the other so that you can build a relationship with one mushroom and see kind of what that offers and what that does, and get to know it on its own. But I even, we make for the ministry microdoses that have Amanita, lion's mane, and psilocybin. They're beautiful. I call it the Holy Trinity. It's a beautiful combination, really. So, yeah, we make tinctures with the dried mushroom also. Those are both the ibotenic acid and the dried Amanita tinctures are really good antivirals. Amanita is really good for seasonal depression. It has more vitamin D than like anything, like bioavailable vitamin D than almost any other mushroom. It's a beautiful mushroom to combine with chaga medicine for inflammation and pain. The ibotenic acid, like I said, is really good for focus and for like vigor. It's really good for like acuity and clarity of thought. The heavier muscimol tincture, that will help with dream states, getting good REM sleep. They're both forms of the mushroom are amazing for releasing addiction to anything, whether it be sugar, cigarettes, just unhealthy toxic patterns in relationships. I've had a really good, as I told you my story, work with like boundaries with people and boundaries with myself, awakening the inner doctor, figuring things out about my health. I've had I've had nerves out in my back and neck that have been impinged that went back into place with consistent use of Amanita. It is an incredible panacea medicine. That's why I know that for me, my ancestors were taking this mushroom for millennia. This is what they took. This is basically one of it was the apex medicine and sacrament for my ancestors. And it can be supported with other herbs and mushrooms, but it's so gentle in its healing, yet so powerful. I'm just really, really grateful to have been able to, encounter people who are using it in a sacred way and medicinally, that opened my mind to not fearing it anymore and starting to walk the path of the Amanita. So it's been amazing. And if you're curious, today we're gonna take a low dose. We're not gonna go crazy with it. Everyone's gonna. The goal is for everyone to drive out of here at 1 o'clock. Obviously, if you're not okay to drive, please say something and we can help you. But we're not going to take enough that people are not going to be able to leave. You may feel sensations from it, and they may last throughout the day because Amanita is kind of a long experience. And you may be getting benefits from it even down the week, down the year, for the rest of your life. I mean, that's how I feel about it. They're like, when does it end? I'm like, it doesn't. It pulls us out of our reptile brain. Yes.
How is the best way to access your apothecary and or your ministry? But say, for instance, okay, so you're open from Wednesday to...
We're opening on Tuesdays now too, starting this week, for the summer. So Tuesday to Saturday, we're there from 1 to 6. I'm sorry, Tuesday through Friday, 1 to 6, Saturday, 12 to 4. I have business cards, we have a website, you can buy stuff online. You can't purchase psilocybin online because it's federally scheduled, but the Amanita you can.
There are some sources out there that kind of use the religious group. There are ways to get it online.
Yeah, I've heard mixed bag because you don't know the source when you just get it from online. So we do provide it to people, but as sacraments, you would come up and we would talk, and if you're using it for spiritual purposes, you can make a donation to the ministry. We don't sell it. It's a sacrament, and then if that's what you're using it for, we support people on that journey.
Back to the question.
Yeah.
Access. So how do you make an appointment?
You can just call. You can call or text. If you need a microdosing appointment, I have a booking system online. It's $75 for a half-hour consult. If I'm at the store and you just want to come in and ask a few questions, I don't charge. I'm there. That's when you can get to me for free, as limited time only, because I am getting really busy. I'm happy to help people that come in and have questions and work through what we can, there, because there's usually people waiting too. But I do one-on-one consults that are scheduled that, I have a form you can fill out and we can really delve into your unique situation, because dosing for people, it varies a lot, person to person, depends on how sensitive you are. Some people are very sensitive, some are not, middle of the road, some people are on medications. There's a lot to look at to make sure that, some people do not want to feel it. They just want to have it on board and not feel it. Some people want to feel it. So there's no right or wrong. It's just that the more you take, the more you need to be careful of your set and setting and have respect for the mushroom.
So she has some of the questions that I
Okay.
because this all sounds like a whole new thing to me, and it sounds to me like it's probably a good idea to get a consultation and not just run out there and start.
Yeah, it can be good.
I mean, if you don't know what you're doing, and it sounds like there's some risks that could be there that if you're not smart, you might miss.
Yeah, I think so. It's wise to maybe, segue in gently and get as much information about it as possible. And I'm happy to help if you want guidance. Like I said, you can come or we can schedule an appointment and you can fill out the form.
Yeah.
I think it is wise to, go respectfully into it. There's a lot of people that, we tried mushrooms or some kind of thing like experimentally in our youth, and then it freaked people out. like they had a very bad experience because of the way they took too much in the wrong place, and we're not doing that. This is we're far beyond that. We're like, what are your goals? What are your needs? Where are you at? What are you looking for? And then working with that.
And bringing the reverence in is important.
Absolutely.
The relationship.
Building a relationship with the mushroom. You getting to know what that mushroom is offering you and what you are offering yourself in your healing process.
Well, I have to tell you that $75 sure beats the hundreds of thousands of dollars that I've paid to doctors who didn't help at all.
Yeah, and the thing about the mushroom is that a lot of people, when they start working with the mushroom, they don't really find that they need the therapy anymore because they're doing it on their own now in community, you know?
Yeah.
You know, this is the way that we're heading, the diversification of healthcare. You know, we are a ministry. We work with herbs and mushrooms. We do the absolute best we can for the people, but it's a community place. Like you guys saw when you come in, all these people coming around and, you know, joining in and being here, coming for ceremony, coming into the shop, talking, and it's a beautiful community because we don't get hurt on our own. We get hurt in relationship and we heal in relationship with the plants, with the mushrooms, with ourselves, with others. So it's kind of like, it's we're just trying to do like what Mother Gaia is out there, healing each other, sharing the medicine, and looking to nature, which is like, you know, divine fractals of frequency, all of it. So yeah, that is a good point, and I think a lot of people would agree with you. A lot of people who begin on this journey, they don't go to the doctor as much anymore. Yeah.
Speaking of community, can you speak to the community that the myelin network that is pretty much covering all of the dirt with any plants on it, that provides for information and exchange between trees and plants, and also the intelligence that it seems to allow plants to speak to each other,
Yes.
that we're just beginning to discover, but it's because it's underfoot and covered, it's not much talked about, but it seems like science is falling into realizing how much of a network, a neuro highway there is already established. Can you say something shortly about that? Because I know it's a whole another
Yeah.
topic.
There's so much to say about that, but it's actually really simple. Not only is it under our feet, but it's inside of us. It's everywhere. There's fungi, bacteria, there's little microbes everywhere. And if you look at the human nervous system and the human organs, we are part of nature. In nature, there is sharing going on. There's community going on. They used to call chaga a parasite. It's not a parasite. That's medicine that the trees share. When you go into like a boggy patch of birch trees, you'll see a lot of chaga because the trees are damaged from the excess water. And when a tree gets damaged, that's when the chaga comes in and starts to heal it, and it prolongs its life. The forest is literally sharing medicine amongst itself. The amanitas are coming up to produce to help pull toxins out and decay the plant matter. It's symbiosis. It's a community of sharing, and there's also war going on. There's fights in there of bacteria, and there's just like in our bodies. So what do you want to align yourself with the medicines? You know, the medicine of the forest. I love working with the medicine of this forest because we are breathing this air. We are here and this land is holding us. You know, so this medicine is perfectly suited for us. I believe in it's local. We have a connection with it. We harvest the Amanita. We harvest all the chaga that we sell. My husband harvests all of it. There's nothing that we bring in from elsewhere. We do run out of Amanita, so I buy it from Siberia. But I buy it from a wonderful person that I know has integrity, and I know that it's coming from land that is very vast and clean, and you know, it's so there's so much to say. I mean, you look at the nervous system, look what it looks like, and then look at mycelium. Look at the lung tissue. Look at all the metaphors. It's the doctrine of signatures, they call it in naturopathic medicine. Like you can see when you look at a lion's mane mushroom and it looks like a nervous system. Well, that mushroom's really good for healing the nervous system. You said the word myelin instead of mycelium, but it's very close. And myelin is what's on the outside of the, it's the covering on the nervous system. And lion's mane, mycelium or fruit body, it heals myelin sheathing for better electrical conductivity. And mushrooms and frequency are very interconnected. Like even in the lore, Bridget, the goddess of the thunder and lightning, you know, when the lightning comes, they said that the lightning signals the mushrooms to grow. Well, I've also heard that the mushrooms grow and they signal the lightning to come. So there's just a lot going on. Life is a big, beautiful mystery.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so we as human beings are but symbiotic into relationship with Mother Nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is a real life, from my own experience, Mother Nature is a real live entity unto itself. And any practice or one's intention to gain awareness of being a real live human being would be that relationship with Mother Nature.
Mm-hmm.
And mushrooms in all forms have been an age-old, and like you were saying, an age-old medicine for human beings on this planet before the corporatocracy decided to put in their 10 cents worth.
But mushrooms are powerful. Look at the comeback they've been making in our mindset and how mainstream it's going
And
now.
Western meds is turning
Mushroom
pretty
bound.
soon will be.
There's going to be a symposium in August, I believe, in Alaska by a bunch of mushroom devotees.
Oh, good.
Well, you know that the Art Division they are
Yep.
doing it again. There was one last
Yes,
year.
the psychedelic conference. Yep. Absolutely. So there are resources right here in Alaska. I mean, both in the forest and in the community. But we are healing with the earth. As we heal ourselves, we heal our relationships, we heal our communities. It reverberates out and we heal Mother Earth. And she's healing us too.
And she's asking for that right now.
Yes.
In such a big way.
Even just going outside when you feel stressed out and taking a little walk and with reverence, you know, and really understanding how healing that is, breathing that air, it will get rid of that virus in your lungs. It will raise your vibration, and that little garbage stuff, it's not going to stick to you anymore. You don't get sick when you have a high vibration. You can supersede all of that.
You don't have to believe in that as a fact.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even have to.
Yeah, I don't like the word believe very much, but at the same time, you know, people, that's freedom is where you're at. And it's okay. It's okay. We're all together in this. Yeah, it exists. Even if you have done a lot of work, like that doesn't mean there is no fear. But the more work I do, the more fearless I become. Yep.
I wish I had encountered you sooner. I'm fixing to leave the country.
Oh.
Stay,
Bob,
stay! Along those lines, I'm moving to a place where I can't really take my books because the climate's not good, so I'm getting rid of all my books, and I brought in a banker's box full of books dealing with the subject of entheogens. And,
Oh man, I really want to look at that.
there's one book you probably are already
What is
familiar
it?
with on microdosing Amanita and Muscaria from a Russian author.
I do sell that book at my store.
Yeah,
Yep, so
yeah.
that'll be a good one.
Please help yourself to them.
Wonderful.
Where are your books?
They're out in the front there in a banker's box.
Did you say you're going to Panama?
We're going to
I've been
Panama.
looking at Panama as a place to maybe retire.
That's what we're doing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Happy for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, cool. There'll be a lot of great medicine and mushrooms there.
Yeah. Panama may be a little legally a little more difficult, but Costa Rica is right across the border.
Right on. Does anyone else have questions?
Yeah, I did have a question. So, when I make also tinctures and stuff. So, with the fresh Amanita would be a tincture that is most helpful in the morning, right?
Yes.
And with the dried one would be at night. Like
Yes, for
at
most
sleeping
people.
Or
Correct. Yes, it would have more ibotenic acid made with a fresh mushroom, and it would have more muscimol with a dried mushroom. So for most people, diabotenic acid is wakeful, it's stimulating, it's organizing, it's good for organizing thoughts. But not everything does the same thing to every person. There's like main general things, but like there's some people that if they have like really, really unique like nervous system, like it might work opposite or not at all, you know, so you can't say everyone, but mostly, yes. That's how I use it, that's how most people use it. You're welcome. Anyone else have a question?
Let's give her a big hand.